Time for another 49ers update. Beautiful Sunday afternoon in the city. We are going to see OTAs begin this week. Organized team activities for the 49ers. And I think that the overarching question is Brandon Aiyuk going to be there? Remember that these are voluntary OTAs. It's not until June 4th through 6th where we see the mandatory veteran minicamp. So if Brandon Aiyuk doesn't show up this week, it doesn't really matter in the large scheme of things. If he doesn't show up in June for the mandatory veteran minicamp, he will be subject to NFL fines. Over the past 2 years, during contract negotiations for Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa, we have not seen Samuel nor Bosa at OTAs, but we have seen them report to mandatory minicamp. I would venture to guess that the same will be the case for Brandon Aiyuk. Today, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that Aiyuk and the 49ers are still far apart on terms of a contract. And to me, that isn't surprising. There's no reason for either side to budge from their current position until there's a semblance of deadline pressure, which is why the Bosa and the Deebo Samuel deals were both resolved much closer to the regular season. There was finally deadline pressure in both of those instances. You can argue that maybe the 49ers will sense a little bit more of a push to get this done sooner so that they avoid the negative drawbacks of both Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa signing later. Obviously, in retrospect, it does appear that the fact that those contracts took so long to execute might have adversely affected those two players' pay. So if the 49ers feel some pressure to get this done sooner to avoid one of those pitfalls of the past, maybe they do budge a little bit. Maybe this does get done a little bit more quickly. But for now, you're still a ways away from the time where an Aiyuk absence would be damaging. Aiyuk missing out on OTAs is not going to be damaging to anybody. In fact, the 49ers just picked up a few new rookie receivers, starting with Ricky Pearsall, going to Jacob Cowing. You could also include Tariq Owens, the undrafted free agent, son of Terrell Owens. All those guys are going to be in the building. The more reps for them during OTAs, the better. Brandon Aiyuk doesn't need reps during OTAs. Now, I think you want him in there during training camp. That's what Nick Bosa missed last year. Deebo Samuel missed a little bit of training camp in 2022, but he ultimately signed and was there for most of it. But I think that the training camp represents kind of the deadline here, at which, you know, if you cross that deadline, you really do start losing true value. You do start facing some consequences of the negative variety if you're the 49ers. So if anything moves forward, I would expect it to happen a little bit closer to training camp. I think the 49ers would be okay with a timeline that's a little bit faster than the Deebo Samuel timeline. They don't want this running a couple days into training camp with Brandon Aiyuk. They would rather have this done right around when Fred Warner or George Kittle signed. That was 2021 and 2020 respectively. Both of those guys were ready to go for training camp, and obviously their deals did not adversely impact their performance. So that's going to be the big thing to watch this week. Will Brandon Aiyuk be there? And if he's not, as I think we expect, you know, how quickly over the course of the summer will the 49ers be able to strike a deal with him so that they can move things along a little bit more expeditiously than the previous A-list big-ticket contract negotiations. Other than that, it's going to be fun to watch Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, all these rookies, work against some veterans now. We saw the rookie minicamp where it's just rookies against rookies or rookies against tryout players or second-year players, and that's all great until you realize that Brock Purdy isn't throwing to Ricky Pearsall. So now we're going to get to see Brock Purdy throwing to Ricky Pearsall. It's already been happening. We'll get to see both sides of the football, rookies on both sides, work against existing 49ers, and that's going to be awesome. It's back at the Boys Deli today here in San Francisco. Still recovering from the swim yesterday. Don't have the footage yet. It's going to be coming up soon. Got back in for like a warm down swim, if you will. Golden Gate's behind me, what we swam yesterday, but it's getting to late afternoon here, so I don't think that you could see it from the shores of the Dolphin Club. Anyway, Boys Deli on Polk was awesome as always. Here you go.